The story of the Weller case truly begins with a man and a forest. In the late summer of 1998, Thomas Weller, a seasoned hiker and amateur botanist, ventured into a remote, unnamed section of the Ozark National Forest. He was a man well acquainted with the region's rugged terrain, known for his meticulous planning and deep respect for the wilderness. His goal was simple: to spend a week documenting rare fern species he believed were unique to a specific valley. He packed enough supplies for 10 days, informed his wife of his exact route, and then, like so many before him, was swallowed by the ancient woods. When he failed to return on his scheduled date, a massive search operation was launched, combing the dense undergrowth and steep ravines for any sign of the missing man. For 3 agonizing weeks, search parties found nothing. His abandoned campsite was eventually discovered, but it offered few clues. His tent was still pitched, and his supplies seemed largely untouched, suggesting he had planned to return shortly after a brief walk. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of an animal attack, and no indication that he had simply gotten lost. It was as if Thomas Weller had stepped out for a moment and vanished into thin air. The official search was eventually scaled back, with most authorities grimly concluding that he had fallen victim to some unseen peril of the wilderness. His family held onto a sliver of hope, but as the seasons changed, that hope began to fade into a quiet, painful acceptance of their loss. Then, one crisp autumn morning, nearly 2 months after he had disappeared, Thomas Weller reappeared. He was found wandering aimlessly along a rural highway, miles from where he had entered the forest. He was disheveled, emaciated, and severely dehydrated, his clothes tattered and torn. He had no memory of the preceding weeks or how he had survived for so long without his gear. His initial rescuers noted his profound confusion and disorientation. He spoke in fragmented sentences, his eyes wide with a terror that seemed disconnected from his immediate surroundings. It was a miraculous return, but the man who came back was not the same one who had walked into the woods. The initial relief of his survival quickly gave way to a deeper, more unsettling mystery. Weller's physical examination revealed no major injuries, only the expected effects of starvation and exposure. Yet his psychological state was alarming. He was plagued by nightmares and a persistent paranoid fear of trees and enclosed green spaces. He couldn't explain where he had been, what he had eaten, or how he had stayed alive. His story, or rather his lack of one, became the first chapter in a bizarre saga that would transform a simple missing person case into a lasting regional legend. The forest had given him back, but it seemed to have kept a part of him, replacing it with something dark and incomprehensible. In the weeks following his return, Thomas Weller underwent extensive psychological evaluation. His doctors were baffled by the depth of his trauma. He described experiencing vivid, terrifying hallucinations that he struggled to separate from reality. He spoke of the forest as a living, breathing entity, not in a metaphorical sense, but as a literal, conscious being. He claimed the trees had voices, a low, constant murmur that burrowed into his mind and filled him with a sense of dread. This song of the wood, as he called it, was not a gentle whisper, but a demanding, oppressive thrum that seemed to emanate from the very soil beneath his feet, a constant pressure on his sanity. Weller's descriptions became more specific and more disturbing over time. He recounted seeing the forest floor move as if it were breathing, with roots and vines slowly writhing like serpents. He believed the plants themselves were watching him, their leaves turning to follow his every step. He told his psychiatrist that he saw faces forming in the bark of ancient oak trees, their expressions shifting from placid observation to menacing scowls. He insisted that he was not merely lost, he was a prisoner. He believed the forest was actively trying to absorb him, to make him a permanent part of its structure, and that he had only escaped through some fluke he could not comprehend. One of the most chilling aspects of his testimony was his belief that the forest was communicating with him directly, offering him a place within its collective consciousness. He described a feeling of being invited to join the song, to let go of his individuality and become one with the wood. This offer, he explained, was both terrifying and strangely seductive. He felt his own will slowly eroding, his thoughts becoming tangled with the rustling of leaves and the creaking of branches. He fought against this mental intrusion, a battle that left him exhausted and on the brink of psychological collapse. His doctors diagnosed him with a severe psychotic episode, likely triggered by the stress of being lost and starving. Despite the medical diagnosis, Weller remained convinced that his experiences were real. He drew frantic sketches of what he had seen: plants with unnatural geometric patterns and trees whose branches intertwined to form cage-like structures. He insisted that he was not insane, but that he had witnessed something that science could not yet explain. His family, desperate to help him, tried to steer him away from these memories, but they were too deeply ingrained. Thomas Weller lived out the rest of his life as a recluse, haunted by the whispers he heard in the woods and the unshakable belief that the forest was not just a place, but a hungry, intelligent being. Following Thomas Weller's public and disturbing testimony, official interest in the specific valley he had visited grew significantly. Initially, the United States Forest Service cited concerns over public safety, suggesting that the rugged and poorly mapped terrain posed an unacceptable risk to hikers. They issued a temporary access restriction to the area, a move that was not entirely unusual for dangerous wilderness zones. However, the closure was quietly extended, then extended again, until it became semi-permanent. Flimsy excuses about soil erosion studies or endangered species monitoring were offered, but they did little to satisfy the growing curiosity of the public and local journalists. The area became known simply as the Weller Zone. This indefinite closure, combined with the lack of transparent communication from authorities, became fertile ground for conspiracy theories. Local residents and amateur investigators began to speculate that the government was hiding something far more significant than a simple safety hazard. Why seal off a whole section of national forest because one man got lost and had a mental breakdown? Theories ranged from the plausible to the fantastic. Some believed the site contained an undiscovered mineral deposit or a hidden military installation. Others whispered that the area was a dumping ground for toxic waste, which could have caused Weller's hallucinations. The most persistent and popular theories, however, circled back to Weller's own strange claims. People began to wonder if there was some truth to his ravings. Had he stumbled upon something truly anomalous in those woods? Rumours spread of strange lights seen hovering over the valley at night, and of muffled rhythmic sounds carrying on the wind. A few brave or foolish individuals attempted to sneak past the perimeter fence, returning with tales of an unnerving silence in the woods, a lack of animal sounds, and a palpable sense of being watched. These trespassers were often caught and faced with hefty fines, further fueling the belief that a cover-up was in progress. The official silence only strengthened the resolve of those who believed something was amiss. The Weller case transformed from a local tragedy into a modern folktale, a story of government secrecy and a mystery hidden deep in the heart of the Ozarks. The restricted zone became a focal point for speculation, a blank space on the map where people could project their deepest fears and curiosities about the unknown. The government's attempt to quell interest had the opposite effect. By walling off the forest, they had turned it into a legend, ensuring that the enigma of Thomas Weller would not be forgotten. My own research into the forgotten history of the Ozarks led me to uncover a startling pattern of events that predated Thomas Weller by more than a century. While digging through old county archives and forgotten newspaper articles for my book, I found numerous accounts of settlers and indigenous people who described similar strange occurrences in that very same region. These were not isolated incidents, but a recurring theme in the folklore and documented history of the area. Reports from the late 19th and early 20th centuries spoke of a whispering valley or a mad forest, a place from which people either never returned or came back profoundly changed. One particularly compelling account from 1885 detailed the story of a trapper named Silas Croft, who disappeared for a week in the same woods. Like Weller, he was found wandering on a nearby road, malnourished and incoherent. He spoke of trees that sing a wicked tune and claimed the forest tried to root him to the ground. His community dismissed him as having gone mad from solitude, and he spent his remaining years in isolation, terrified of the wilderness that had once been his livelihood. Another story, passed down through Osage oral tradition, warned of a sacred place where the spirits of the earth were so strong that they could steal a man's mind and make him one with the soil. These historical narratives shared uncanny similarities with Weller's modern testimony. The descriptions of auditory hallucinations, the voices or singing of the trees, were a consistent thread. So was the theme of psychological transformation, where individuals returned with a broken psyche and a newfound phobia of nature. Early settlers wrote in their journals about avoiding certain valleys where the woods felt wrong or unnatural. They described a feeling of being watched and a strange, disorienting effect on their senses. These were practical, hardened people, not prone to flights of fancy, yet their warnings were clear and consistent across generations. Connecting these historical accounts to the Weller case was a pivotal moment. It suggested that Weller's experience was not a unique psychological event triggered by stress, but rather the latest chapter in a long, mysterious history. The forest itself seemed to be the constant variable. It became clear that the official explanation of Weller's breakdown was insufficient. It failed to account for the generations of people who had reported the same phenomena long before him. The madness was not just in the man, it seemed to be intrinsically linked to the place, an echo reverberating through the history of the Ozark woods. The mystery of the Weller Zone took a dramatic scientific turn in the early 2010s. A small, government-sanctioned research team was finally granted limited access to the restricted area. The team was led by Dr. Aris Vasquez, a brilliant but controversial biologist known for his work in phytosociology and fungal communication networks. His official mission was to conduct a baseline ecological survey, but his private goal was to investigate the biological basis for the region's strange history. Dr. Vasquez and his team spent months collecting soil, water and plant samples, running extensive tests both on-site and in their labs. Their findings were more shocking than anyone could have anticipated. Dr. Vasquez discovered an incredibly complex and highly unusual symbiotic network of fungi and plants that was unique to this specific valley. The mycelial network, the underground fungal web that connects trees and plants, was extraordinarily dense, far more so than any previously recorded. More importantly, it was found to be producing a unique and potent class of psychoactive alkaloids. These compounds were being absorbed by the root systems of the trees and plants, effectively saturating the local flora with a powerful hallucinogen. The forest was, in a very real sense, drugged. Further analysis revealed that this fungal network was capable of transmitting complex electrical and chemical signals between plants on a scale never before seen. Dr. Vasquez theorized that the entire valley operated almost as a single superorganism, with the mycelial web acting as a shared nervous system. This network would react to stimuli, such as the vibrations caused by a person walking, by altering the chemical signals and electrical pulses it sent through the ecosystem. The forest wasn't just passively present, it was an active, reactive environment, constantly communicating with itself in a language of chemistry and electricity. These discoveries provided a stunning potential explanation for the whispering woods of legend. Dr. Vasquez proposed that the psychoactive compounds, when inhaled or absorbed through the skin in sufficient quantities, could induce powerful auditory and visual hallucinations. The low-frequency electrical signals pulsing through the ground could potentially be perceived by the human brain as a low hum or thrum, matching the descriptions of the singing or murmuring that both Weller and historical figures had reported. For the first time, a plausible scientific framework existed that could explain the strange psychological effects the forest had on its visitors. Dr. Vasquez's findings cast the historical reports and Thomas Weller's testimony in an entirely new light. The voices that people claimed to hear could now be interpreted as auditory hallucinations, induced by the unique airborne alkaloids present in the valley's ecosystem. The constant, low hum Weller described as the song of the wood aligned perfectly with the theory of low-frequency electrical signals generated by the massive fungal network. What was once dismissed as madness could now be seen as a predictable neurochemical reaction to a unique and potent environment. The legends were not just stories. They were the anecdotal evidence of a powerful biological phenomenon. The visual distortions reported over the centuries also found a potential scientific basis. Weller's claims of seeing faces in tree bark and the ground writhing could be explained as classic symptoms of a psychedelic experience, where the brain's pattern recognition abilities are sent into overdrive. The feeling of being watched, a common thread in so many accounts, could be a paranoid reaction triggered by the hallucinogenic compounds. The forest wasn't literally watching them, but the chemical environment it created made them feel as if it were. Suddenly, the madness of the forest's victims seemed less like a psychological failing and more like a physiological response. Moreover, Vasquez's research gave credence to the more esoteric descriptions of the forest. The feeling of the woods being a single, conscious entity, as described by Weller, resonated with the discovery of the valley-wide superorganism linked by a single mycelial network. While the forest didn't possess consciousness in a human sense, its interconnected and reactive nature could certainly be perceived that way by a mind under the influence of its chemistry. The invitation Weller felt to join the song could be interpreted as the psychological effect of the compounds breaking down the ego, a common experience with powerful psychedelics, making him feel as if his sense of self was dissolving into his surroundings. This scientific validation of historical folklore is a rare and fascinating occurrence. It bridges the gap between myth and observable reality, suggesting that many legends may have roots in real, misunderstood natural phenomena. The story of the Weller case became a powerful example of how folk knowledge, passed down through generations, can preserve the truth of a place long before science has the tools to measure it. The settlers and trappers of the 19th century didn't have the language of neurochemistry, but they knew one thing for certain. There was something in those woods that could steal a person's mind, and they were right. Just when it seemed the Weller case had found a neat scientific explanation, a new discovery in 2015 plunged the mystery back into darker, more unsettling territory. A follow-up ecological team, operating under a strict non-disclosure agreement with the Park Service, was conducting a deep soil survey in the valley's center. They were looking for the boundaries of the unique mycelial network when they unearthed something that defied easy explanation. It was a plant specimen, a species of deep-rooting vine common to the area, but its root structure was unlike anything seen before. It appeared to have fused with organic matter in the soil. Upon closer laboratory analysis, the organic matter was identified as animal bone, and more disturbingly, human bone. The plant's roots had not simply grown around the skeletal fragments, they had integrated them directly into their biological structure. The minerals from the bone, primarily calcium phosphate, had been absorbed and repurposed, creating a hybrid material that was part plant, part bone. The vine's root system had become a horrifying biological artifact, a living testament to whatever had perished in that soil. The fusion was so complete that scientists struggled to determine where the plant ended and the bone began. This discovery was deeply disturbing and raised a host of new questions. How was this fusion possible? The biological process required for a plant to incorporate bone material at a cellular level is unknown to modern science. It suggested a form of aggressive, almost predatory symbiosis that went far beyond the known functions of a forest ecosystem. The finding also gave a terrifying new context to Thomas Weller's belief that the forest wanted to absorb him. The idea was no longer just a drug-induced metaphor. The evidence of literal absorption was now sitting in a laboratory petri dish, a silent and horrifying proof of concept. The US Forest Service has remained completely silent about the 2015 discovery. No official report has been released, and all requests for information have been denied, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation. This secrecy has only intensified speculation. Does this bone-fused plant life explain what happened to the people who, throughout history, walked into the valley and never came out? Was the forest not just intoxicating its victims, but consuming them, breaking them down, and incorporating them into its own living structure? The line between science fiction and horrifying reality had become terrifyingly thin. Today, the Weller case remains a captivating puzzle, a place where established facts, scientific theories, and chilling folklore intertwine. The official explanation for Thomas Weller's experience is still a psychotic episode induced by survival stress. Yet, this simple diagnosis fails to satisfy anyone who has looked deeper into the story. It cannot account for the long history of similar events in the region, nor can it explain the highly anomalous biological discoveries made within the restricted zone. The case has become a touchstone for discussions about the limits of our understanding and the mysteries that still lie hidden in the world's wild places. The fascination with the Weller case continues to grow, fueled by the mixture of credible science and unanswered questions. On one hand, Dr. Vasquez's research provides a rational, biological basis for the strange events, grounding the legend in the world of psychoactive alkaloids and complex mycelial networks. On the other hand, the discovery of bone-fused plants pushes the story back into the realm of the unknown and the terrifying. This duality is what makes the case so compelling. It offers just enough science to be believable and just enough mystery to be haunting. It allows for both rational inquiry and fearful speculation to coexist. The official secrecy surrounding the site only adds to its mystique. The government's refusal to comment on the 2015 findings has created an information vacuum that is eagerly filled by speculation and rumor. Online forums and documentary filmmakers continue to dissect every piece of available information, proposing new theories that connect the Weller case to everything from unknown organisms to fringe physics. The forest has become more than just a location. It is a narrative, constantly being rewritten by those who are captivated by its secrets. The truth, whatever it may be, remains locked behind a government fence and a wall of silence. Ultimately, the Weller case endures because it speaks to a fundamental human curiosity about the unknown and a primal fear of the natural world. It reminds us that there are still places on Earth that we do not fully understand, where the rules of biology as we know them may not apply. It's a story that blurs the lines between what is real and what is imagined, between a scientific anomaly and a living, hungry legend. People remain fascinated because the case offers no easy answers, leaving each of us to wonder what truly happened to Thomas Weller and what secrets the Ozark forest continues to hold. The Enigmatic Weller Case serves as a profound reflection on the complex relationship between science, history, and legend. It is a story woven from three distinct threads: the empirical data of modern biology, the anecdotal evidence of historical records, and the haunting whispers of folklore. Each thread is essential to understanding the full picture, yet together they create a tapestry that is richer and more mysterious than any single element alone. The case challenges us to look beyond simple explanations and appreciate that the truth of a place can be layered, complex, and sometimes contradictory. Science, through the work of Dr. Vasquez, provided a framework for understanding the impossible. It gave a name, psychoactive alkaloids and bioelectrical signals, to the wicked tune and whispering voices of legend. It transformed what seemed like supernatural events into a natural, albeit extraordinary, phenomenon. This scientific lens did not diminish the mystery, but rather gave it a new and more terrifying dimension. It confirmed that the forest was indeed capable of altering human perception and consciousness, validating the core of the legends in a way that eyewitness accounts alone never could. Science made the monster real. Simultaneously, the historical and folkloric records provide the essential human context that science lacks. My own research into the forgotten accounts of settlers and trappers demonstrates that the phenomenon is not new. These stories give the mystery a soul, reminding us that for centuries, real people have encountered this enigma and struggled to describe it with the language they had. Their fear, their confusion, and their madness were the raw data points of a long-running experiment between humans and this strange environment. History ensures that we see Thomas Weller not as an isolated case, but as the latest person to bear witness to an ancient secret. In its conclusion, the Weller case leaves us standing at the edge of knowledge, peering into the unknown. The discovery of the bone-fused flora reminds us that even when science provides some answers, it can also unveil deeper, more profound questions. This story is a testament to the idea that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to be contemplated. It is a rich and unsettling blend of what we know, what we think we know, and what we may never understand. The forest in the Ozarks continues to hold its secrets, a silent monument to the enduring power of mystery in a world that craves certainty.